are you today? All right, we are on week 6 of our Dutch Wonderland. We are making lots and lots of progress. We are making block 4 this week, but I wanted to start off by showing where we're at and how this is going to start coming together. If you're doing the full quilt versus the blocks, let me get this up so you can see the top of the quilt. There we go. If you're doing the full quilt instead of just the 12 blocks, you can start seeing how it's going to come together. This was last week's block, this was block 3, this was block 2, and this was the center block and the borders we did. So now we have these 3 blocks make the borders that are going to go on the 4 sides. Then we need to do the corner blocks, which I believe are next week. Those are block 5. So once we get block 5 done, you can actually put the center of your quilt together. But I wanted to share with you how this is working. I had mentioned earlier about how I chose the fabrics to bleed from one block into the next, which is what gives it that really impressive look, like it's just sort of melding and blending together. And now you can start to see that with these backgrounds. So this one has the black background, I believe that's background A, and the border here is blending into that block. This block has all 3 backgrounds. It has the A, the C, and the B. And you can see now where the B is blending into this green, and the A is blending in, tying in these 3 corners, and then when we get out here, this cream will blend in to the next round. So that is how this is put together. And you can use that when you're picking fabrics on other quilts, because if you know the trick of how to bleed the background and change it, you could have blocks that all have the same background, but change the background in the center blocks to bleed into the second background, to bleed into the third, and have a whole new look to your quilt without having to have a whole new pattern. So that is where we're at there. This week's block, block 4, looks like this. And this is going to go in the corners of the quilt. So you'll see the cream is on one half and the black background's on the other. That's because it's going to bleed into this cream, and then we're going to start with black again on the outside. So we're going to go over square and a square and a square, which is flip and sew, and the bias triangles, and then how I pressed and assembled the whole quilt. So we're going to get the camera turned down and we will get that part started. So we're going to start with the center block, and that is the square and a square. And how we do a square and the square is you're going to take the smaller squares and mark them for flip and sew. And I think we did this a little bit earlier. No, I don't think we have. So flip and sew is you put the square onto a smaller square onto a bigger square or rectangle. You sew across the diagonal and it flips open. So that's flip and sew. It probably has a million other names, but that's how I was taught. So to do that, we're going to mark our square. And I'm going to show you how we do that. We're going to use our Pac-Man ruler, our Creative Grids multi-size ruler. And that goes together with this ruler. And we're going to take our square and we're going to put the ruler on. And I have found it's easier to go sideways, so you don't have the ruler sticking into you. We're aligning the bottom edge with the 3-inch, the top edge with the square, and the side edge with the square. And we're going to mark the line. And now what this line becomes is your 1/4-inch line. Okay? So when we go to sew this, we are still sewing point to point, but our 1/4-inch foot or 1/4-inch lines follow this line. So here is the quilt. Let me mark the line because you can't see it very well. So I put my 1/4-inch foot on my drawn line and I sewed point to point. And that will give me a perfect corner, okay? So when you're doing this square and a square, you can do opposite corners at the same time, trim them, press them, and then do the other corners. So a little bit about that. So first, once you've done this, you need to trim these. And a really cool tip that I think I've shown in other videos with you guys is I line them up with a line on the mat, like this. So I'm aligning the sewn line with the line on the mat. And then I take a ruler, I'll have like, 20 of these stacked up. I take the ruler and I line the edge of the ruler with the drawn line and the 1/4 inch line with my sewn line, and I go ahead and cut these away. And that'll get rid of these little dog ears that you see are gone here. You can take a pair of scissors and just cut the center out and leave the background triangle. If your things are, I'm just going to push this off, so if your things were off a little bit, you could use the background as your outer edge versus this actual square. But if you use our method, it will be very, very accurate. The only way it wouldn't be is if your cutting is off, so just FYI there, gotta cut careful. So we do those two, we cut them away. Let's just cut them away to show you. And then we're going to press them. Now, whether they are light or dark doesn't matter at this point. What I recommend, obviously you can do it however you'd like, but I recommend pressing the smaller squares out. I just think it lays nicer and it's easier to quilt it when it's done. So you see I'm just pushing it out using the side of my edge into the seam and pressing it. Now you go ahead and you can lay on your next two and sew them. So on here there is a big triangle and a little triangle. Little triangle always points out. So, and you know that when you get to your machine and you go to sew from point to point, your 1/4 inch foot should go on this line. If you were to flip this and go to your machine and sew point to point, that line becomes arbitrary and you know you have it upside down and you need to rotate it. So then we would sew these two on, and here it is sewn. We would go ahead and trim off the excess. And before you trim off your excess, it's always a good practice to flip this up and make sure that it's aligning correctly, so that if something weird or funky happens, you can catch it before you cut this, because once you cut it, you just have to start over if you did it wrong. You can't really save this. And then we come back over and we're going to press. So this is the center of our block. Just peek and see how you guys are doing. There we go. So there's the center. Then to do the corners, those are our traditional half square triangles. We did a whole video last week on all different ways to do half square triangles. I hope that helped you guys. And so you're going to make 2 with the cream background and 2 with the black background, which is fabric A and fabric C, and we're using fabric I as the color. So those are, again, we've done those several times, so I'm going to skip the half square triangles part. Then we have to do these bias triangles, and they sew together to create that unit, which becomes our side borders. So to do those, we need to take 2, if you have 4 1/4 inch squares, you're going to cut them across both diagonals. So pretend that's a solid square. You'd cut it across both diagonals to get 4 little triangles. So we're going to take 1 of fabric C and 1 of fabric J, and you're going to put them right sides together and press it open. Now the trick with this whole block is that we're going to do mirror image. So some of the blocks go this way. Well, for every unit, we have to have one go this way and one go that way. And that'll be clear here in a second. So once we sew these on, again, I start at the right angle and I sew out to the point. And then I press these to this one I'm pressing to the green or fabric J. And again, very delicate with these because these are bias. And these will stretch and distort on us. Again, fabric will relax back, but you really don't want to stretch it. So then I'm going to cut this little dog ear off. And that's what the back of my piece looks like. And I'm going to align it with one of the larger fabric D triangles. And I align the seam line with the tip of that pink triangle. Then I align the outer edges. And you can see here, because, you know, whenever you're dealing with triangles, you're not 100% accurate. At least I'm not. You can see here, you see how it's that little bit of pink peeking out? That is just a distortion. Either I cut this too small, or this a little big, or it's stretched, or whatever. But by aligning this point out here and these outer edges out here, I would use the bigger triangle as my guide on my 1/4 inch foot. So the 1/4 inch foot would ride right along that pink. This is so little, we're not going to worry about it. It's in the seam allowance. You're never going to see it. But if you follow that alignment, then you're going to end up with perfect, I don't know what you call these, three triangles blocks. If anyone knows the name of this that's like official or whatever, let me know. So we have that. And to press this, we're going to press towards the big triangle. Again, I think I talked earlier about this. When you have to decide which way to press a seam, because it really, whether the pattern tells you or not, you should look at it and decide for yourself how you want to press something, because, you know, my preference of pressing may be different than yours. And so if you were to press it this way, you're pressing into another seam, which is right here. If you press it this way, there is no other seams, so the whole block will lay flatter. So given a choice, if I can go left or right, in this case I would go right because there's no other seams I'm crossing that are running perpendicular. You know, there's always cases where it may go the other way, but 90% of the time this is what I do. Again, take the edge of my iron. Make sure these are really, at the corners, love to roll the fabric into your seam, so just be careful and make sure you get it all tight and flat. And then you go ahead and cut these little dog ears off. And you need 1 unit going this way and 1 unit, oh here, let's switch to the right color. So we have 1 unit going this way. We just did this, it's just black instead of cream. And we have 1 unit going this way. And then when you sew those two together, you end up with the unit like this. Okay, and you want to make sure that these are, you know, 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, and then for the pressing on that, so here's this, these are pressed out flat. To press this, oh, let me grab my stick, hold on a second. We are going to use our strip stick and our purple thing. We're going to press these seams open. That's because at these two junctures, right here and right here, there's multiple layers of fabric, and that's going to get chunky and crunchy and harder to sew through. You could press, if you don't like pressing open, you can just press it to one side and deal with a little bit of bulk. It's not, I mean, I did it that way for years. I just found this way recently that it's much smoother, flatter, it's easier to quilt it. So again, I use the purple thing to open the seam, the tip of my iron on the stick, and we press it flat. And then flip it over and press it again. And that is how you're going to make these units. So then we're ready to assemble our block. So we take our center that's done, and then we take our star points, and we're going to lay those on here. We'll sew these to these. And I pressed, once you sewed those on, I did press these open and these open. So when I sewed the two sides on, those seams are open. Let's turn this sideways so you can see it. Then when I sewed this guy to my half square triangles, and that's also when you're putting this block together can be a pitfall. Make sure that you put the correct, oh, did I just do that wrong? I did. Let's redo this. The pink goes in. I actually had it laid out on my board backwards. The pink star points go in. So you do that. Then for the top and bottom, you get one of these funky ones. These are done the same as that. They're just with different colors. So you put this guy here. Like I said, it's a puzzle. You have to play with it. And the reason I knew that was wrong is this was sitting here, and I put that there, and I realized that's white to black, and it needs to be black to black, white to white. So that's how, if you're laying this out at home and you're sewing your blocks, that is a good reminder for yourself. So this guy is also wrong. This guy is black. So that goes like that, and then this goes here. So now you see black, 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 black. Okay, now we're gonna go white, white, white. Scoot this up a little here. White. And this is where mixing your backgrounds, you have to pay attention, because it is it's very easy to sew it wrong, and you won't find the mistake till the quilt top's done, and then you're like, oh, now I gotta either live with it or fix it. We always have a choice. So there we go. So we've got black going on that half and white going on this half. Still can't seem to get my star points right. All the star points are in, and so that's why you lay these out. For that reason right there. I could have picked that up and sewed it, and it would have just been, oh, I gotta rip all this. So that is how you make block 4. And again, we press the sides out or open and the top and bottom open. And that is the block all finished. So pretty easy this week. We only need to make, I think, 4 of these total. Yes, 4 of these total. Oh, wait, no, wrong block. Hold on a second. But it is 4. So we make 4 of these total. These, I'm going to turn you back up here now. You can see where the background is going to bleed into the white here, and then we go back out to the dark. So we're making the 4 corner blocks here. Then you can actually sew these guys together and make the entire center of your quilt. So that is where we're at. 4 of those. Then I think next week, I can't believe we're going to be on week 7 next week already. So if you have any questions on that one, we're going to be putting everything together. We're going to go over Flying Geese next week. And then we are on to block 8, which is all log cabins and how to sew straight seams and how to make sure everything kind of stays square as you go. So stay tuned for that. I don't really have any commercials this week. We did post a new blog yesterday all about our Midas Touch quilt, and it's a blog hop with Benartech, so I guess I do have a commercial. It is 12 designers, 12 collections from Benartech, all about Christmas. So you can hop on over to our blog and check that out this week, and we did tutorials on how to do that quilt. Those are up on YouTube. I appreciate the support. So let's wrap this up. This is week 6. It's a little bit quicker because we've actually talked about a lot of the techniques, and there weren't any questions, but I thank you for watching, and we will see you next week. Have a good week. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, make sure you like and subscribe below. You can find the Whimsical Workshop on our website, thewhimsicalworkshop.com, and that has all links to all of our other social media platforms. Thanks for joining us.